Hello and welcome to this micro-credential on measurement and estimating. Think about this. In every construction project, whether it's building a small house or a multi-million-dollar infrastructure, someone has to answer the question, how much will it cost? And the answer to that question starts with measurement and estimating. This micro-credential is all about bridging theory with practice. We'll be exploring how accurate measurements and reliable estimates are the foundation of successful projects. That's how powerful measurement and estimating are. They shape projects before the first brick is even laid. Let's start with a simple introduction. This course carries 3 credit hours. Measurement is about quantifying the work that needs to be done. How many cubic meters of concrete, how many square meters of plastering, how many tons of steel reinforcement. Estimating, on the other hand, takes those quantities and converts them into costs. Now, why is this important? Imagine you're planning to build a house. If your measurements are wrong, you might underorder materials and delay the project, or worse, overspend by thousands of ringgit. On a bigger scale, inaccurate estimating could derail an entire project's budget. In the construction industry, we say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's exactly what this course is designed to teach you. The skill of managing costs through accurate measurement and careful estimating. By the end of this micro-credential, there are 3 main outcomes you should be able to achieve. First, you'll understand the principles of measurement and estimating. This means you won't just memorize methods. You'll grasp why we measure and estimate the way we do. Second, you'll be able to apply measurement techniques to specific construction elements. For example, you'll learn how to measure walls, floors, finishes, and even external works. Third, you'll be able to prepare basic estimates using suitable methods. Whether it's a preliminary estimate for a client who just wants a ballpark figure, or a more detailed estimate for tendering, you'll learn how to approach both. In the real world, numbers are not just technical, they carry ethical responsibilities. Intentionally overestimating or underestimating can damage reputations and relationships within the industry. So this course is not only about learning techniques, it's also about building trust, professionalism, and integrity. Now let's talk about how you'll be learning in this course. This micro-credential is built on the idea of bite-sized learning. Instead of overwhelming you with long lectures, we break the content into small, focused chunks. This way, you can consume one lesson at a time, even during a lunch break or while commuting. We'll also use real-world examples to illustrate concepts. For instance, when we talk about estimating concrete work, we'll link it to an actual project scenario. When we discuss plastering, we'll show how measurement translates directly into cost for a contractor's tender. The methodology also includes interactive components, like short quizzes, problem-solving exercises, and reflection questions. These are not meant to test you in a stressful way, but rather to reinforce your learning. Now let's move on to assessment. You might be wondering, how do we check your progress in this course? This micro-credential has 2 main assessment components, assignments and a final test. Let's break them down. First assignment. You'll be required to adapt the principles of measurement and estimating. This is where your numeracy skills will be assessed. Think of it as applying the fundamental rules, checking if you can measure and calculate correctly. Second assignment. Here, you'll be given a construction plan. Your task is to measure the quantities based on that plan. This simulates what quantity surveyors and estimators do in practice, taking a drawing and translating it into accurate measurements. Third assignment. For this task, you'll need to collect and organize information from suppliers and manufacturers. The goal is to establish estimating costs. In other words, you'll experience how professionals in the industry source real data, compare prices, and prepare a cost estimate that reflects market conditions. And finally, the final test. This is where you'll bring it all together. The test will check your overall understanding of the principles, techniques, and applications you've learned throughout the course. So assessments here are not just about passing or failing. They're designed to help you practice, apply, and demonstrate the skills you'll need in the real construction industry. Now let's look at the syllabus. We've designed the contents to build your knowledge gradually. First, we'll look at the methods of recording measurement. This includes taking measurements directly from construction drawings, such as floor plans, sections, and elevations, as well as recording quantities on site. For example, Imagine you're checking the volume of excavation work already completed on a housing site in Shah Alam. You'll need to know how to measure accurately both on paper and in the field. Next, we'll study the rules and principles of measurement as defined in the Standard Method of Measurement, or SMM. This standard ensures consistency so that whether you're working in Johor, Penang, or Sabah, all professionals measure in the same way. It's like speaking a common language across the construction industry. We'll also explore the methods of processing measurement, both pre-contract and post-contract. Pre-contract measurements are used to prepare cost estimates and tender documents, while post-contract measurements help with valuing variations, interim payments, and final accounts. In other words, you'll see how measurement supports the entire project lifecycle. From there, we'll cover the measurement of building trades. This includes brickwork, plastering, roofing, finishes, and many other elements. You'll learn not just how to calculate quantities, but also the logic behind each trade's measurement. By the end of this section, you'll have a solid grasp of the principles, standards, and techniques of measurement. More importantly, you'll see how these skills translate directly into practice. Whether you're pricing a small renovation project or preparing quantities for a major development like the MRT stations in Kuala Lumpur. Next in our syllabus, we'll explore an exciting aspect of measurement and estimating that directly connects to modern practice: computer applications. Today, the construction industry has moved far beyond manual measurement. Tools such as CostX, Glodon, and BIM-based software are widely used in Malaysia to expedite quantity takeoff and minimize errors. With these applications, measurements can be extracted directly from digital drawings, improving both efficiency and accuracy. As future professionals, it's important for you to be familiar with these technologies because they are fast becoming the industry standard. Now let's move on to the introduction to estimating. Estimating is the process of predicting the cost of a project before it begins, and it is one of the most critical steps in construction. We'll start by interpreting what estimating really means and why it's so important. Think about it. A client needs to know whether their dream project is financially feasible. Contractors need to know how much to price in their tender. Banks need to understand the cost before releasing funds. Estimating sits right at the center of all these decisions. You'll also learn about the types of estimates, from rough order of magnitude estimates at the early stages of a project to detailed cost estimates during tendering. And we'll cover the standard formats of cost estimates, which ensure that estimates are clear, structured, and comparable. Once you understand the basics, we'll move into estimating practice and process. This is where we put theory into action. The process begins with pre-selection and the contractor's decision to tender. Not every project is worth bidding for, so contractors must weigh risks, capacity, and profit potential before committing. Next, we gather data, collection and calculation of cost information. This includes materials, labor, equipment, and subcontractor costs. For example, you may need to collect steel reinforcement prices from suppliers in Kuala Lumpur or get updated ready-mix concrete rates from a plant in Johor. After that, we calculate direct costs, the actual costs of labor, materials, and plant, and then move on to on-costs such as overheads, preliminaries, and profit margins. All of this leads to completing the cost estimate, followed by a final review and the preparation of an estimate report. The review stage is critical because even small errors in calculations can lead to big losses. Finally, we'll cover the last step: tender submission and post-tender actions. Submitting a tender is not just handing over numbers. It's a formal process that involves documentation, compliance, and often post-submission negotiations. Understanding what happens after the tender is submitted is just as important as preparing the estimate itself. Next in the syllabus, we'll be looking into the contracts and tenders. In construction, contracts define the rules of engagement between the client and the contractor. There are different types of contracts, each with its own advantages and risks. Understanding these contract types helps us see how measurement and estimating play a role in pricing, risk allocation, and project delivery. We'll also look at the difference between a tender and a quotation. A tender is usually a formal process for larger projects, like government infrastructure or commercial buildings, while a quotation is often used for smaller works, such as renovations or subcontract packages. Knowing when to use which approach is key for both clients and contractors. From here, we'll move into the tendering process. This starts with the preparation of tender documents. These documents contain everything the contractor needs to prepare a price: the drawings, specifications, bills of quantities, and contract conditions. We'll explore the content of a tender document in detail so you'll understand what goes in and why. Once the documents are ready, the next step is the calling of tenders. This can be done through open tendering, selective tendering, or negotiated tendering, depending on the client's objectives. After tenders are received comes a tender analysis and report. At this stage, the consultant or client compares submissions, evaluates compliance, and looks at both price and capability. Finally, the process ends with the selection of the contractor, where the winning bid is awarded and the contract is signed. The last part of this section focuses on the methods of estimation. There are several approaches, and each is used at different project stages. By understanding these methods, you'll be able to select the right estimating approach depending on the stage of the project and the level of information available. Lastly, in our syllabus, we'll dive into the estimating costs and building up rates. Every construction project relies on 5 major cost components. These are building materials, labor, plant and equipment, administration costs, and profit. When you put these 5 elements together, you build a comprehensive picture of what the project will cost. Now let's move into building up rates and quantifying materials. This is where we break down construction activities into measurable items and determine the unit rates, which includes the machineries and plant, excavation work, piling, concrete work, reinforcement, and formwork. These are core elements of almost every project. Each has its own rate. By learning how to build up rates, you'll understand not just what something costs, but why it costs that amount. You'll see the link between labor, materials, machinery, and overheads, and how they combine to form a competitive, realistic price. In practice, this knowledge equips you to prepare tenders, evaluate contractor submissions, and manage costs effectively throughout the project lifecycle. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to introduce the team behind this micro-credential. This course is delivered by 5 instructors, each bringing a unique blend of academic excellence and industry experience. Collectively, they have taught measurement and estimating at the university level for many years, guiding students from basic concepts all the way to advanced applications. But beyond teaching, they have also been involved in real-world projects, ranging from housing developments to infrastructure projects. What this means for you as a learner is simple. You're not just getting theory from textbooks, you're learning from people who have applied these principles on the ground. They understand the challenges faced on site, the realities of tendering, and the importance of accuracy and integrity in the field. So throughout this course, you'll be learning from instructors who are not only educators, but also practitioners. Professionals who know exactly how measurement and estimating shape the success of projects in Malaysia. So that's a quick overview of what's ahead in this micro-credential. Remember, measurement and estimating are more than technical tasks. They are skills that can make or break a project. Through this course, you'll gain practical knowledge, hands-on experience, and a professional mindset. Whether you're a student preparing for a career in construction or a practitioner sharpening your skills, this course will give you the confidence to measure and estimate with accuracy and integrity. Let's get started.